An investigation sets the stage for an historic vote at the Capitol.
Authorize the filing of articles of impeachment against Attorney General Ken Paxton.
So how did we get here, and what's the political impact of Republicans taking on a powerful leader in their own party? We take a closer look. Plus, the effort to expand availability of medical cannabis falls short at the Texas Capitol, how that's affecting people seeking treatment. And he was the only Texas Republican congressman to vote yes on a gun bill after Uvalde.
We have to move the ball forward. Enough with the finger pointing, enough with these dug-in, entrenched positions.
1 year later, why he says he'd do it again, despite tough criticism.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Memorial Day weekend is traditionally one of the busiest times of the legislative session. This year, it's even more intense, with the House weighing impeachment for Attorney General Ken Paxton. If you're watching this program, you've probably just watched a newscast with the latest developments, but we're going to take a deeper dive. Paxton has faced accusations for years, still he stayed popular with voters. We'll look closer at the reasons why and how that could affect what happens next, and the impact of the move by Republican lawmakers to move forward with impeachment of an influential leader in their own party. For insight, we bring in Capitol reporter Ryan Chandler. You've been covering this story for a while. State leaders have known about these accusations against Paxton for years. Why now to bring up impeachment?
Josh, that is the golden question that is on everybody's minds inside the Texas Capitol right now. Because you're right, for many of these accusations, they're not new. Attorney General Ken Paxton has been under felony indictment for 2 counts of securities fraud since 2015, the entire time he's been in office. The whistleblower allegations go back to 2020. But what is different this session is the Attorney General requested $3.3 million to settle that whistleblower lawsuit. That's public money. That is not something that he can approve himself. The legislature has to give their seal of approval. And from our reporting, it shows they were skeptical of just rubber stamping that expenditure. They wanted to look in more into why we should be using taxpayer dollars to settle a lawsuit that came from alleged improprieties from our state's top law enforcement official. And it seems like they uncovered more than they intended to.
So we know Paxton is a Republican, and so is the leader of the investigative committee, and of course the House Speaker is too. What's the larger picture here with Republicans investigating a powerful leader in their own party?
You know, all session we've seen infighting within the Republican Party. And I think that just speaks to the diversity of Texas Republicans. You know, Texas is a massive state. A Republican out of Houston may be very different than a Republican out of Lubbock, and we've seen that rear its head through policy debates, whether it's education or property taxes. The two chambers don't always get along, even though they are dominated by Republicans. But what we've been hearing is that with Ken Paxton in particular, it's just reached a point where his long history of legal troubles have led some Republicans to believe he is a drag on the party, a drag on their brand. And I think they believe it's time for new leadership.
Yeah, looking down the road, this could lead to a special election to replace the Attorney General. What are you hearing about people that could throw their hat in the ring?
So if the Senate does convict the Attorney General, that leaves an open seat in one of the most powerful posts in Texas. So I predict that is going to yield a crowded field of Republican challengers. You could look many different places for that. The first thing that comes to mind is the Texas Senate. There are a lot of senior Republicans who do practice law there, who may want to throw their hat in the ring. Keep in mind, if you're a senior senator in Texas and you want to move up to statewide office, it would be very convenient for the Attorney General to have an open seat because there isn't many more places to go. But then you look at the competitive primary that Ken Paxton won out in the last election cycle. You have George P. Bush, the former land commissioner, who may want to throw his hat back in the ring. You have Eva Guzman, who had a very important position leading the investigation into the Uvalde school shooting, former Supreme Court Justice. She could be a challenger, but it's going to be a contested election for sure.
All right, still a lot to break down. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Josh, thanks.
Paxton supporters say his election success is one of the reasons he should not be removed from office. They point out that he won re-election even though voters knew about the accusations against him.
The voters have rejected these smears, they've rejected these attacks, and this committee is trying to undermine the will of the voters.
It is true that Texas voters have shown strong support for Paxton. For example, Paxton faced a tough field in last year's Republican primary. Land Commissioner George P. Bush, former Texas Supreme Court Justice Eva Guzman, and Congressman Louis Gohmert all raised questions about the accusations against Paxton, but they didn't seem to matter to voters. Just before the March 2022 primary, our Emerson College poll asked what people thought about Paxton's indictment. More than 40% said it had no impact on their vote. Nearly a quarter said it actually made them more likely to vote for Paxton. The race went to a runoff, but as you can see from the results, he had a solid lead over everyone in the field, and Paxton won the runoff against Bush by a more than 2-1 margin. And he went on to an easy victory in last November's general election. Paxton beat Democrat Rochelle Garza by more than 800,000 votes. So why is Paxton so popular, despite all the accusations against him? One reason is that he has continually sued the Biden administration and continually reminded people he has. That's helped endear him to Republican voters. We typed in the phrase "sues Biden" into the search bar on the Texas Attorney General's website. It returned more than 60 resulting news releases. The most recent one was just this week, suing over the new CBP One app. It is supposed to help Customs and Border Protection streamline the process of migrants applying for asylum and help out Homeland Security on the border. Paxton's office argues the app does not verify a migrant would qualify for an exception. He also sued against vaccine mandates for private businesses connected to the pandemic, as well as for Texas National Guard troops. He even sued back in February, claiming a $1.7 trillion spending bill was unconstitutional because of House members voting by proxy. Uvalde, 1 year later, families of the victims step up to fight for changing gun laws. We look at where they succeeded and why they're still pushing for change. Bills to fight the state's fentanyl problem advanced to the governor's desk. We meet one mother who took her grief and turned it into action.